Welcome back to another episode of the Cedarville Stories Podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and it's my pleasure to have Dr. Samson Amos, Associate Professor of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Cedarville University, as my guest today. Samson is a gifted faculty member in Cedarville's School of Pharmacy, and he is in the process of studying cancer and how natural products like plants, fruits, and vegetables could positively impact cancer treatment, as well as hypertension, diabetes, malaria, and sickle cell. Dr. Amos earned his doctorate degree in pharmacology from the University of Nigeria. He also earned a degree from the University of Virginia, and he's been a faculty member in Cedarville School of Pharmacy since 2010. With that said, let me welcome Dr. Samson Amos to this week's Cedarville Stories Podcast. It's an honor to have Dr. Samson Amos on the podcast today. I've wanted to do this for quite a while, ever since I read a story that one of the Cedarville PR student writers wrote about your research. And so let's start there, Samson. So I recall that there was an encounter with a neighbor that really led to opening your eyes to the importance of you trying to find a cure for cancer. Can you relive that story or share that story with us?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Honestly, as a young academic and researcher, I was visiting my little hometown back in Nigeria. And upon arrival, I was walking to my house. It was then I noticed a shout and a scream and a cry.
Yeah.
And in there, I thought to myself, what is going on? So I walked up to the house because it's a small village.
Okay.
And so we get to know each other.
Sure.
So I went in and I noticed a crowd of individuals in the house. And that's when they told me this woman is not been feeling well. So I moved closer to meet with her personally because as at that time I was actually done with my pharmacy degree.
Okay.
So when I walked in and I met with her, she was in pain, in an excruciating pain, and was crying. And she told me she's got breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And since she knew my background as a pharmacist,
okay,
she looked me straight in my face and told me clearly, Samson, you need to help women like me. That stirred up something new in me. A passion to understand what cancer is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, a passion to figure out therapeutic agents that can ameliorate this disease condition.
Mm-hmm.
And it is through this that God gave me the opportunity to come to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville,
okay,
where I had the opportunity to begin my training and a deeper understanding of the molecular basis of cancer growth.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's important to understand the background of those cancers
mm-hmm.
before you can even begin to implement targeted therapy.
Correct.
So this is how the story of cancer research started.
So Samson, before that encounter with that neighbor,
Right.
what was your thought of what you were going to do professionally in your life? Where was your heart and mind at that point?
So this is a very interesting question. I will tell you that right from inception in pharmacy school, my goal, especially when I got to my second year, I was actually tilting towards understanding therapeutic paradigm. And most importantly, to understand the scientific basis for disease and how we can treat those diseases. Now, coming from a country like Nigeria, I had the opportunity to really actualize this when I was working with the Research Institute. So the Research Institute was established primarily to look at natural products in the management of a number of tropical diseases, such as malaria, and then other chronic conditions like hypertension and diabetes. And we were also involved in looking at the place of natural products in sickle cell disease, because we do know that sickle cell disease, it's mostly an African kinds of disease. So it's not like it's widespread. And our concern is, how can we help the community? How can we help Africa get out of this? So it is through this process that, one, we look at some natural plants that we can technically use for the treatment of malaria because we know it's endemic. Now, we had other products that we investigated its effect on diabetes. And in this case, we noticed that even when we were able to induce high blood glucose level in rats, and we fed them with these natural products, we noticed that the blood glucose level was falling over time. And even in rats with hypertension, one of the plants that I personally studied was to investigate its effects in hypertension. It actually came to us from a community in which people were using this natural plant to cook. And we noticed that in that community, the percentage of people presenting with hypertension was less than 2%. That motivated the study, which we did in rats and in other bigger mammals. And the result of that study pointed out clearly that that product on its own, it's able to lower blood pressure. And we were able to determine a mechanism through which that natural product decrease blood pressure in animals.
So if I understand you correctly, initially your research, you were always interested in research.
Correct.
But it was going to be a broader research.
Right.
But in reality, even though it was a broader research, you're really still doing the same research, but you just added a focus on cancer. Is that right?
That's true. That's very true. And cancer came to mind because of my encounter with
your neighbor.
And that actually spurred me up to want to understand more about this disease, because the challenge that she left for me as an individual is for me to help women like her out there. And I took it upon myself that in the small ways that I can, I want to be able to contribute to our understanding of cancer.
So how long have you been doing this cancer research? Has it only been since you've been at Cedarville in 2010, or were you doing it earlier?
No, that cancer research, I will say this is about 20 plus years now.
You've been doing it for 20 years?
Correct. From my time from UVA in Charlottesville, Virginia, to Cedarville here. Right.
And so while you're doing the research, even now, decades since that incident with your neighbor.
Correct.
Does her voice ever come back to you, or does that situation ever come back to you as you're in the research as a continued motivation for you to keep pressing on?
So I would tell you that is very true. every time I get into the lab, I am motivated to find solutions. I am motivated to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I am motivated to make an impact in the lives of people.
Okay.
One, I consider them honestly as image bearers. I see that I have the opportunity that they don't have. And how can I make a difference in those lives? So anytime I go into the lab and I have the opportunity, I try to do the best that I can to figure out what's going on in terms of cancer research.
So at Cedarville, with the research you're doing,
Right.
you're also including Cedarville students, Cedarville
Right.
pharmacy students. So it's also a teaching opportunity.
Right.
What have you learned in your research since you've been here that gives you hope for that you could find a solution that could help people, help women?
Yeah. So one of the key things is the opportunity that the School of Pharmacy has provided for us to have like a lab where we can conduct what we call a minimal research to further help us with our understanding. Additionally, because of the area of studies that I am involved in, students naturally gravitate towards wanting to work with me. And it has given me the opportunity, one, to train them. Two, to provide the skill sets that they need to be successful clinicians.
Okay.
Number three, it gives me an opportunity for kingdom impact because either in or out of the classroom, I have those opportunities to hear their stories. And at those critical, quiet moments, I get to hear students' stories when they are experiencing mountaintop joys. And those stories in which they are also experiencing the valley experiences that are not pleasant. It gives me the opportunity to reassure them that the God of the mountain is the same God in the valley. His everlasting presence, either while we are on the mountaintop or in the valley, he is there with us. His presence, it's never far from us. And I encourage them that truly we might be going through this at this moment.
Right.
I want them to know that I will come alongside with them. But very importantly, joy comes in the morning.
How do your students respond to you coming alongside them? I would think they're encouraged.
Right. So most of them are encouraged, and that has allowed a lot of them, one, to trust and be able to open up because they see that, we can honestly confide in him what we are going through. And no second ear will hear this. But rather, I take that opportunity to pray for them and to support them through this process. And I encourage them through, let's take, for example, Colossians 3. Right? The Bible says, it's God that has chosen us.
Correct.
It's God that has made us holy.
Right.
And he said, you are beloved, which means God is pleased with us. And I said, with that understanding, how then do we approach life? We approach life with compassion. We approach life with humility. We approach life with meekness. And then we approach life with patience. And in integrating all of these components, I try to challenge them that because God has chosen you and you are beloved of God, even as you go through this, know that God loves you and use your giftings to be able to reach those that you are taken care of with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Christ had compassion on
Absolutely.
people.
Right.
Christ was meek. Use the humility that he has given you and be patient, because they are going through very difficult moments in life.
How have you seen those kingdom impact moments when you're doing research side by side with a student, multiple students? How have you seen those students respond?
So I see them respond positively, and I see them come back with stories to me.
Like what?
Okay, some of them come back to tell me, Dr. Amos, I was doing this on this day, and a patient came in. One, the patient is a non-English speaking patient.
Okay.
And so he needed help. And they were saying, okay, I need to step up and help this person. Because they also recognized that he is an image bearer. And so they went out of their way to ensure they get a language interpreter so that they can help this patient find what he is looking for and how they can come alongside him in his health care. And so I see those small baby steps as making those kinds of impact in the lives of our students to go out there as kingdom ambassadors representing Christ and doing the clinical work with a passion in order to achieve a better clinical outcome, but more importantly, to sow into the lives of these patients, though they are calling as believers and as Christians.
So you really have a twofold mission, at least a twofold mission, but I'll say it's twofold. One is to do clinical research that, Lord willing, will lead toward a cure or helping people with cancer, women with cancer specifically. But the second fold is to instill Christ-like principles, values, lessons into the students so that they are doing what you just said. They're making a difference in their lives, not just physically, but spiritually. So both are important. But one of them supersedes the other, right?
Sure.
And that's kingdom work, right?
Correct.
And so when you see your students responding to that, that encourages you. How do you hear from students years after they've graduated and some of these lessons that they've learned here?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will tell you that some of the students that I have interacted with them, some of them either call me on phone.
Okay.
And they share some testimonies with me. Some of them sent me email about what God is doing in their lives.
Yeah.
And to see some of them making very good career trajectory and still holding on to faith without giving up on the values that make them who they are, which is found in Christ, gives me joy.
Yeah. So is it fair to say, obviously that's more important.
Right.
So do you feel like if you don't come up with a cancer solution with your students, that's okay as long as you're sowing seeds of Christ-likeness and ministry among your students?
Yeah, so honestly, out here in Cedarville, all the studies that we do are limited.
Okay. What makes them limited?
Because one, the facility.
Okay.
We don't have all the facilities that a tier 1 university will have.
Correct. Right.
But we are doing the best by laying the foundations, which we believe someday, somehow, one of our trainees might be opportune to be at a tier 1 university
Right.
and carry on with the work. But like I told you, what is important to me, it's either we find the cure or we don't find the cure. I want to ensure that my students and the people that I work with, including myself, serve as hands and gloves through which God insert his hand into it to touch the lives of people through that which we do. For me, that is much more primary.
Right.
Because I know that either with cancer or without cancer, this mortal body will give way.
It will.
But then, where will our soul be?
Correct.
But our soul's genuine touch by God goes to a resting place that is everlasting.
Yeah. So just a few minutes ago, you shared a biblical lesson, because you said that whether you are finding a cure for cancer here, or it's one of your students later on at a tier 1 institution,
right?
It reminded me of some water, some plant,
correct,
and some reap.
Right.
At some point, Lord willing, someone's going to reap,
right?
And it could be the result of your work. Speak to that possibility and that excitement.
Yeah. So, for one of the studies that we did, right, we found out that combining a natural product with a standard chemotherapy actually was much more better.
Okay.
Now, but because of the limited facility, we can't carry it on. But then somebody from a different program reached out and said, oh, can we formulate this into a combination agent and try it in animals?
Okay.
So we do believe there are individuals that would like to collaborate with us because it was a sound scientific basic background we presented in that paper. So I am confident that with what we are doing and with what we have done, there are individuals out there that will be interested.
Okay.
And they are likely going to reach out to us. Or, like I tell my students, if you have the opportunity, I am more than happy to support you through this process to take it over.
Let me ask you a two-part question. So first off is, what advances have you seen from the research that makes a cure closer to becoming reality? That's part one. And the second part is, it sounds like you are also partnering with students or professionals at other institutions, larger institutions. How do they find you? So first of all, are you closer to a cure? Have you moved the football down the field a little bit? And then how do people find you to partner with you?
Okay. So like I said, we are technically not close because we are unable to do what we call translational research.
Okay.
Which means we need to take it to the next level by investigating the effects of some of these compounds in an animal studies. Now, even with the animal models, there are so many animal models that we can use for cancer. Some of them are through chemical induction. Some are through genetic manipulations of the animals. And others, we have to just do what we call xenograft models. So, but because we don't have those facilities out here to be able to execute, while I was in Virginia, we do have a small animal MRI that can image the brain of a rat and give us all the data that we need. So, all I do believe it's that one day somebody out there will find us. People get to find you, one, because of the quality of your publication. And they see your effort, even in a smaller program like this, that you are breaking through barriers to accomplish at the very high level. I will tell you this, most of the publications that I have put out here, some of them have an impact factor of 5. So which means it's like I am with Ohio State University.
Right.
So, and very importantly, those of us in the science understand that when people begin to reference your work, you are beginning to make a dent in the scientific field. And that's why when you look at my citations, you will find out that it's very high, and that actually affects the way people reach out to you, because they know that the quality and the product that you bring to the table is of a superior quality. And so they will want to engage with you because they know that what you are doing, it's making a change in their own understanding.
How does your passion and drive for excellence, how does that match the mission and vision of Cedarville University?
So, Cedarville University is a university that actually loves excellence. And by coming here, I knew that excellence has to also be my watchword. And so I see them agreeing together and then fulfilling this mission of the university to be excellent in all that we do, both in the classroom, in the lab, in my interactions with people. Excellence is what I try to achieve. And that's why, as an individual, when I have students and they don't understand this, and you tell them that, we need to repeat this experiment like 3-4 times. They will, but we have seen this result. Why do we need to repeat? I tell them, not only do we need to have the technical replicates, we need to also have the biological replicates. And the goal is just to ensure that if I am telling you that product A decreases cancer growth, I am confident that wherever you try it, it will decrease the cancer growth in vitro.
Yeah.
So I see excellence in all the fingerprints around campus and around what we do at the university.
What brings you the greatest satisfaction of being a professor, being a mentor to students and colleagues, doing research for cancer? What brings you the greatest satisfaction?
I will tell you there are so many, but one that actually stood out to me is to methodically mentor the students.
Okay.
One, not just in the field of science, but to be there as a spiritual mentor for some of them.
Okay.
When they will come with issues of life, and you are able to counsel them, pray for them, check on them, make sure things are going on well with them. This gives me joy. At the end of the day, when everything is done, they look back to their time here, and they have every cause to thank God for bringing them here and allowing God to meet with all of us faculty members.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the mentorship of students.
Right.
I enjoy impacting on them because I do believe they are the next generation. Whatever we do now, by impacting positively on their life, they carry the torch. They carry it on from us.
Right.
And I believe that they will make an impact.
So probably my final question, and give me a caveat because I may think of something else, but how hopeful are you that in your lifetime a cure could be discovered, or something that mitigates the growth of cancer. It may not wipe it out, but it mitigates it.
Yeah, I am super hopeful because God created us. Mm. And in this creation, He has given us the wisdom, the knowledge, the inquisitiveness to be able to ask questions and be able to find solutions to human disease. Mm. I know He is the same God yesterday, today, and forever. And I'm confident that as we walk with Him, He will give us the lead.
Yeah. Samson, our time is up. I cherish you as a colleague. We have good times together. I really appreciate your heart and how you just interact with people. And let me speak to those who are watching or listening to this podcast, especially if you're interested in the profession of pharmacy or pharmacy research. I really encourage you to visit Cedarville University's website, cedarville.edu, and look at what we're doing here. Look at the faculty who are teaching here. I think you'll be impressed, and you just might want to pursue a degree here in pharmacy. So look at Cedarville's website, cedarville.edu, and maybe come for a visit. We'd be glad to have you on campus. Samson, our time is up, but thanks for spending the last few minutes with us, and I look forward to hearing more about your research, and thank you for having that passion to serve Jesus, whether it's in research or just mentoring your students. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories Podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. Be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.